Oh, yeah. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Let's call to order this annual meeting of the Assessment Appeals Board for today, July 20th, 2015. It's great to see everyone today. Let's start with a quick presentation from Mr. Vlahakis, our clerk.
The board is present today pursuant to the requirements of Revenue and Taxation Code, Section 1604 and Property Tax Rule 309, which states, in counties having a population in excess of 4 million, on the fourth Monday in September of each year, the board shall meet to equalize the assessment of property on local roll and shall continue to meet for that purpose from time to time until the business of equalization has been disposed of. Notice of today's meeting was published in the Ventura County Star on July 2nd, 2015, pursuant to the requirements of Revenue and Taxation Code, Section 1601C. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Brandon. Next, let's have our roll call, please.
Board Member Crow.
Present.
Board Member Curtis.
Present.
Board Member Ferris.
Present.
Board Member Hess.
Present.
Board Member Little. Board Member Sisk.
Present.
And Board Member Stern.
Present. Great, thank you. And now let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on the agenda, item 4, election of chair and vice chair for the Assessment Appeals Board. And we'll start with election of the chair, and we'll ask first if there are any nominations.
I'd like to make a motion to re-elect Chair Stern.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Curtis and a second by Mr. Crow. And before we go any farther, are there any objections to the motion? Okay. Hearing no objections, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And next, appointment of the vice chair. Do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Vince Curtis to be the vice chair of the Assessment Appeals Board.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Mr. Crow and seconded by Mr. Sisk. And again, any objections to the nomination? Okay, hearing none, motion carries. And Mr. Vlahakis, should I be calling for a vote in favor if?
It's sufficient. Both motions have passed.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll go next to item 5, approval of the Assessment Appeals Hearing Board and Hearing Officer 2016 meeting calendar. Morning, Ms. Gonzalez. How are you?
Good morning, board members. Before you is the 2016 meeting schedule, in which we have set dates for the hearing board and the hearing officers, just to help not only your board but also the assessor's office staff prepare for the meetings that we anticipate to be held in 2016. Your approval of the calendar will also allow, though, as the R&T code allows the clerk to either remove or add meetings as necessary. So we just want to make our 2016 calendar public, so also that way we have it posted online, so that way the public and agents also are aware tentatively of what our 2016 calendar will be.
Great, thank you. Do we, is it appropriate for us to take action and approve the calendar? Or are we just accepting the report?
Correct. If we could just make a motion to approve, unless
Great.
somebody has any sort of concerns they'd like to address as far as the calendar goes.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much. First, are there any questions from the board, comments regarding the calendar? Okay, so we'll ask.
The remainder
Go ahead.
of 2015, there hasn't been any modifications to that.
I'm so sorry, I could barely.
This is for the remaining calendar for 2015. For the remaining calendar 2015, has there been any modifications?
Not yet. I know there was a few meetings that we were kind of holding off on just towards the end of the year. Originally, we had expected to possibly cancel the December meeting for the hearing board, but it looks like that meeting will go on as originally planned, just because of items that are being continued or being worked on or things coming forward that we felt that could be added to that meeting calendar. If any changes do occur, we will notify the board members that were scheduled to attend that meeting way far in advance.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we'll ask for a motion to approve the calendar.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, moved by Ms. Ferris and seconded by Mr. Crow. All those in favor, please, I think we're voting electronically. And motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Ms. Gonzalez. We'll go next to item 6 regarding receipt and filing of the summary report of active assessment appeal applications, in which the 2-year final determination deadline has passed, but waiver extend the hearing.
This is something new that the clerk of the board will plan on presenting to your board at your annual meeting for all board members to recognize the appeals that we have still on file that have yet to be presented, scheduled for hearing, and some that are now scheduled for hearing in the coming months, that have the 2-year waiver on file, yet maybe the 2-year expiration is close to expiring or has expired. We just want your board to every year acknowledge and know what is on file with our office.
Okay, and that's included in our packet.
Correct.
And I believe we also received it ahead of time. Are there any questions or comments from the board related to this list? And Mr. Vlahakis, is there any action that we need to
We'd be
take?
looking for a motion to receive and file.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hess, seconded by Mr. Curtis. And we can all vote electronically. And it looks like the motion is approved unanimously. Thanks, Ms. Gonzalez. We'll go next to item 7, or stipulations that were received earlier this week, items 8 through 17. And I believe all of the board members received those stipulations via email. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll ask for a motion.
Motion is to accept the stipulations as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Ms. Ferris. And please vote electronically. Mr. Vlahakis, I just noticed that Mr. Crow doesn't have a way to vote, so electronically.
I took care of
So
it.
okay,
You can handle that for me.
just for the heck of it, sorry, Mr. Crow.
No
I
problem.
will ask all those in favor.
I
Okay, and it looks like from the voting that we don't have any opposed, so the motion is approved unanimously. Great, next we'll go to item 18, presentation by the clerk of the board. Morning, Mr. Palmer.
Good morning, board members, Chairman Stern, members of the board. I'm Brian Palmer. I'm your Chief Deputy Clerk of the Board. I became the Chief Deputy in April of 2013, and I just wanted to give a brief introduction. One of the first things I did after becoming the Chief Deputy Clerk was to promote Rosa, or Rosa was promoted to Senior Deputy Clerk, but I made her the Assessment Appeals Manager, and I think over the past year and a half or 2 years, you've seen a lot of improvements and changes that Rosa has made, including the wonderful staff that she's trained and brought up into the Clerk of the Board's office to support your needs as the Assessment Appeals Board. And I just wanted to thank you for your service. I know that our office really appreciates the efforts that you have to make to be here and hear the appeals cases that you work on. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rosa to give the remainder of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members again. Rosa Gonzalez, the clerk of the board office. Get a presentation up. What we'll be recapping this last year as far as the work performed in our office and the appeals received and processed, and also the items that were heard before your board over the last year. In the clerk of the board office, we have supporting the Assessment Appeals Board and Hearing Officer. We have Brendan Vajakis, Lori Gaines, and additionally we have assistants from Monica Sanchez and our seasonal staff. Our seasonal staff member last year was Shannon Takar. And we just want to say if it wasn't for the hard work of these employees, it definitely would have impacted the way that business is done and the hearings are processed. So we want to say thank you very much to those employees within our office for all their assistance. The clerk of the board office provides service with assisting applicants and agents with filing their assessment appeals. We also assist them with providing them guidance with the hearing procedures and any sort of requirements that they need to be prepared for when they do come before your board. We hope that with providing that information, with not only filing the appeal, but also helping them prepare for their hearing, it assists with a more smooth transition, and hope that the communication between not only the applicant and the assessor's office, but also the information is relayed to your board at the time of hearing, ensuring that everybody has a fair hearing before you. Additionally, our office supports the Assessment Appeals Board and Hearing Officer, such as preparing your agendas, providing you packets, and any additional information that we feel would be beneficial during the hearings. As of July, we're going to recap real quickly the last year's presentation that we did, just to kind of give us some visual of how much we've improved within the process, and also the hard work of not only our office and your board, but also the assessor's office, considering the amount of appeals that are heard and going through, and the amount of time that everything is being processed and heard. For July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2014, as you see at the bottom left, the total of appeals filed were 2,377 appeals. Of that, there was 2,057 regular appeals and 320 appeals that were either supplemental, escape, or rule change. And that number reflects, again, the appeals that were received for that entire filing year. The Assessment Appeals Board held 22 meetings, and on your agendas you heard a total of 2,487 items, with your average agenda having 113 items. And that's quite a beefy agenda compared to some of the other meetings that are held throughout the county. The hearing officer meetings, there was 12 with a total of 331 items, and the average was 28 agenda items. This past year, you will see that the amount of applications received by the clerk of the board office did slightly increase. We had a total of 2,407, with 2,003 regular appeals and 404 supplemental escape or rule change applications that were filed. Your Assessment Appeals Board actually had one less meeting. You had 21 meetings, but your total agenda items went up to 2,529, with your average agenda having 120 items. The hearing officer meetings significantly, they decreased to only 5 meetings. The agenda items were bumped up to 263, and your average agenda items was 53. With that, when we compare the numbers, if you look, we went back a little bit further also to 2012, just to give a bit more of a comparison, since we did begin the changes in April of 2013 with the assessment appeals. If you look at the number of appeals that were received, and the amount of appeals that were resolved, and second, it has the months on average. This is just kind of a rough estimate. We wanted to provide you some information on how much faster appeals are getting processed and resolved. You'll see that it has taken from 13 months in 2012, and it went up to 14 months in 2013. But now, as of this last year, hearings, they've been resolved within 10 months. So that's a 4-month decrease in the amount of time somebody's had to, wait in having their appeal heard. So that's a cause for actually to have a faster day to either get a date before your board or to have their appeal resolved. If you look for the Assessment Appeals Board resolution time, last year it was at 15 months, and 2013 it was at 15 months, and last year it went down to 11 months. So that shortened the time by 4 months. The hearing officer went from 10.5 to 8. And we also broke down residential property resolution time and also non-residential, just since residential property impacts the majority of just the average homeowner and taxpayer that tends to have a little bit more of a difficult time before the board and actually within the assessment appeals process. And we've focused a majority of our efforts in trying to provide assistance and guidance in that appeals process. And with that, we've been able to decrease it by 2 months. And if you look at the non-residential, it went from 15 months to 4 months. To 11 months, decreasing it by 4 months. Our accomplishments for this past year, we kind of had a big surprise with the new assessment appeals application actually being passed by the Board of Equalization. That had been something that they had been discussing for years and years and years, and then at the last minute they decided to make it go into effect. And that caused a bit of extra work on our office's part in trying to adjust, especially such as our database, and work around that and get things prepared, and also have our voice within the creation of that assessment appeal and what would benefit the taxpayer in understanding and filling out the application when they first originally attempt to submit the application. Again, we did our yearly agent outreach where our office notifies every agent on record that we have for the last 2 years that filed an appeal with our county. We make sure to provide them an outreach packet unique for agents in which we specify information that they should be aware of, such as the requirements for agent authorizations and also the process of what it is when we file an assessment appeal and what they should be prepared for when they do come before the board. We hope that agent outreach also, again, helps the agents in preparing for their hearing and also just within the process itself, and also hopefully help staff with not having to constantly reiterate and spend so much time going over some of the processes. Hearing notices are also continue to go out at 60 to 75 days in advance. The BOE requires us to only provide 45-day notice. 45 days to the average person could come and go really quick. So we're aware that 65 to 75 days, the majority are going out at the 75 days. We hope that by providing such advance notification to applicants, it allows for them, if they have any personal scheduling conflicts or make special arrangements, that they are provided enough time to do so. That way it also avoids the requirement of having to reschedule appeals at the last minute or missing their hearing dates. We also, again, decrease the application processing timeline within our office. We're constantly looking at ways within our office to make it so that way the processing time from the time an application is received in our office to the time that it's set for hearing is decreased. And again, the clerks in our office, although it's not mandated by the State Board of Equalization, our office does require any clerk that is working with the Assessment Appeals Board to complete and pass the State Board of Equalization's Assessment Appeals training that is offered directly through them. And we require that our clerks pass that and are certified by the State Board. Our goals for this next year, our number one that I know we've talked a lot about for some time has been the adoption of our local rules. I feel that is a very, if not the most important issue that we need to start discussions on, and we hope within the next month and a half to schedule a hearing, special hearing with all board members in attendance and again, bring forward the local rules and start what would be, one of numerous meetings, just so we could begin the discussion of adopting the local rules on what areas we could improve. There's language within the draft local rules that our office is currently compiling. If there's issues you want added, removed, that, just be something that we could all have a discussion along with the assessor's office, in our office, and any member of the public, agents that wish to contribute in that discussion. We are going to also, with the new assessment appeal application that the Board of Equalization required the state, every county in the state to use, has allowed for us to now look at improving our online filing of assessment appeals. So that's another area within the next few months. It's a pretty big project. Aside from improving the online filing of assessment appeals, we're also currently redoing our database within the office. So those will be ways that we're also going to implement faster ways in processing the appeals, providing notification not only to the assessor's office but also to applicants via email of hearings or any sort of correspondence. That way, not everything is done through the mail and just speeds up the notification process. Another thing we're looking at that we've gathered data from across the state and within our office is for another discussion to bring forward before your board, which will be the idea of an appeal filing fee. Most counties have some, and that will be something for your board to take into consideration, the information that the clerk of the board office provides, and make a decision on as far as if you would like to implement a filing fee, and if so, what would be the fee itself. Additionally, the same will be for the findings of fact fee. That is a fee that has been in place since about 1984. So our office has also revisited that, and we will be looking at also finding if either your board would like to continue the same fee or if you would like to raise it. Another thing our office is hoping to do eventually is to have paperless meetings in which we would not provide you any longer paper, but if not, use the monitors that are at the dais in order for you to follow along within the meeting and access the meeting materials electronically. And finally, our office will continue in trying to improve customer service. That is one area that we feel we should and will always continue trying to find ways to improve not only our customer service, but also our relationships with the assessor's office and also your assessment appeals board, and trying to work collaboratively together in trying to make the whole appeals process best for applicants, the board, and for the assessor's office staff. And that concludes our presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation, and we'll start with any questions from the board. That's how good your presentation
Great.
was. There aren't any questions. I would just like to make a quick comment and thank Mr. Palmer, Ms. Gonzalez, and the whole staff, Mr. Vlahakis, for all of your work and your trainees and making sure everything's organized. Thank you so much. It's been evident the work and level of organization that you've put forth and really helped the process. So we appreciate that.
Thank you very, very much.
And any other comments from the board, obviously, are welcome. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll go next to the assessor's presentation.
Good morning.
Hi, Mr. Meyer.
Kent Meyer, Ventura County Assessor's Office. I'm the assessor's rep in most of these hearings. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. As you guys know, most of my presentations are usually short, maybe not so sweet.
They're pretty sweet.
I think my presentations usually last about 10 minutes. The questions, comments, and criticisms of my presentation, half an hour, 45 minutes. I'd like to start by introducing our staff this year. We lost Mindy DePoyen and Scott Combs. They were transferred to other sections of the office. But returning this year, we have Christopher Horn again. He's going to be handled primarily the major shopping centers and major manufacturing and industrial properties. Arnold Greenberg, lead appraiser for personal property. Rick Denham, our lead appraiser for residential property. And our two new people, Andrea Rovtar, journey level appraiser, primarily going to be working with commercial, office, and rural properties. And Nadia Viveros, she's going to be primarily working with possessory interests, commercial, industrial, and service stations. I handed out to Brendan a copy of our statistics for the year. As you note, 2008, 9, and 10 are now big old goose eggs. That's primarily because just last month we were able to close out the NetJet hearings that had been held over for several years. Ventura County took the back seat on these stipulations. It was led by LA County. And on item number 6 on our agenda, we still have our 11 and 12 items that are still scheduled. The DirecTV are being handled primarily by another county, not by Ventura County. A lot of the other appeals are scheduled for August 3rd. And on the next page, just a quick disposition of the 2013 cases. Last year, roughly 53% of all of the dispositions were in the form of a withdrawal. About 23% were stipulations. Approximately 12% were denied for lack of appearance, and another 10% were dismissed or rejected by the clerk of the board's office. For 2014, kind of interesting, roughly 70% of the 2014 cases have already been resolved. The first 2014 cases were actually scheduled in March, so in 4 months we cleared out roughly 70% of the workload this year. I can credit that with two factors. One was the aggressive scheduling on the part of the clerk of the board. And the other is our staff appraisers, working with the applicants, communicating with them, getting the information necessary to determine whether or not a stipulation was warranted, or to determine whether or not our value is actually on the roll, below market, or at market. Right now, with just a little over 700 2014 applications still open, I think we have a little over 200 scheduled for August 3rd and about 260 scheduled for November. And then there's still a few hundred that have not been scheduled yet. But I anticipate getting everything cleared out as soon as possible. That's pretty much it for my presentation. Any questions?
Any questions from the board for Mr. Meyer? Wow.
And I believe the Honorable Dan Goodwin would like to take up the rest of my time.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Meyer. Morning,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Goodwin.
Good morning. This is kind of an opportunity to have a little more of a conversation than a speech. So from my point, if as I'm talking about a few things, if a question maybe comes to mind, sometimes questions come to mind and then later they drift away as the presentation moves. So
It happens a lot to me.
Yeah, certainly happens to me. I go upstairs, come down, and I forget, now what was it I was supposed to do? So I'd like to invite this just to be a conversation, if that sounds good to the chair. Just for the record, my name is Dan Goodwin, Assessor of Ventura County. And I'd like to begin by thanking each of you as members of this board and the public service that's accomplished by your presence. Your very action helps add to local government confidence of the public, and especially property owners in local government. It's very important, and we're very mindful that this is the assessor is certainly a very interested party in this process, but it's an independent process managed by the clerk of the board and under your leadership, and so it's as much as we can do to help the public understand that as well. I think that's the best way to go. Also, many of you have served a number of years, and I want to add my appreciation to that and commitment to the future. You deserve to receive the respect of the public and county government, because the service you provide is kind of unseen by most, but yet if it were poorly dispatched, it would create a lot of issues. One of the great things is how many newspaper reporters do we have in here? See, that's really a sign that we're boring. One of the great things going on in Ventura County right now is it's being handled so efficiently. These property appeals, the issues, the discussions with taxpayers, the explanations of how they file their appeal and the rules and the guidance that's given I think in all participants. It's really a testimony to the success that's underway. I also want to thank the clerk of the board, Mr. Palmer, and under the leadership of Mr. Powers, is providing a trajectory of administration of the rules and the responsibilities they have, the communication with the public, the application process that is getting better. It's the kind of trajectory you love to be a part of in an organization. It helps lead to the collegial relationships that we have, because we don't have a lot of arguments over little things like the agenda or application processing. And in fact, if anything, everybody's respect is growing as a process. So you're doing a great job. Appreciate it very much. And county council, the role of county council to provide direction, to explain rules, certainly for your board, also for the taxpayers' benefit, for our own, under leadership of Leroy Smith. And of course, because of the nature of our business, I really can't have much conversation with any of you. In fact, I can have zero conversation on anything regarding appeal issues. But I can talk to Mr. Smith, and he has his staff who work both for you and then give my office counsel as well. And so that process is working well as well. Mr. Randazzo, appreciate your time, the years you've put into this as well. And of course, the assessor staff, I want to thank this group. This is really an outstanding team, and the team that you've seen, some of the members we've transitioned to other assignments within our office. But I want to give you a little something you wouldn't know unless you've talked to some of your colleagues in other counties, or the clerk certainly has. But the efficiency by which assessment appeals are being processed is really remarkable. Very, very few, if any, counties have a shorter time period right now than we have in Ventura County for the processing of applications. As the deputy clerk was showing you the record for various categories, that's very admirable. Most counties are probably twice as long as what you saw on that screen. In terms of the response to property owners, including residential, most of them are over a year long. Backlogs are a very big problem in many counties, and the lack of a backlog in our county is another. I give substantial credit to the leadership under Mr. Meyer and Brooke Hill, the manager in the back of this group, who lead the appeals group for it. But they've organized not only the workflow, but the communication as well. And so when you have this many property owners agreeing to withdraw at a relatively short period of time, it tells you they received a good explanation, they received facts. In many cases, they receive, residential ones will receive information on comparables in the mail right away, so that they can have a look for themselves at what the assessor would be considering. So those are things to be understood, because of if you know the work the assessor is doing before it ever gets to this dais, then you would understand that it's a substantial effort. The teamwork with the clerks sort of tees it up so in a timely manner, so the assessor can follow up. And then, if the property owner calls, since we've got the Open Championship going right now, if the property owner says, yeah, that's a great shot, and in fact it's right in the fairway, and eventually sees that a par was scored, then they are inclined to agree and withdraw. Stipulations happen when our staff sees that the decision should be for a recommendation of a changed assessment that the property owner agrees with as well. And that brings me to a point I want to emphasize. Our appraisers, our auditor appraisers, as in the entire appraisal discipline, appraisers are to be advocates for their opinion of value. They're not to be advocates for maintaining tax levels, revenue levels, although their work ultimately, whatever the results of their work are, will have an impact on those tax levels. They are never to be advocates for more taxes. They are always to be advocates for their point of view, that they should research the situation, both value indicators as well as the revenue and tax code on various issues, and work. And I appreciate they work hard to try to be clear about the revenue and tax code. At times that can be a challenge because they're, in our work, when I was in private practice many years ago now, I could decline assignments I didn't want to do. Here we can't decline an assignment. And so every every property factor is potentially one that might come up and can have some issues. I think another thing I want to mention is you saw the accomplishments lists of the clerk and some of the other goals and all they have. And I know right now we have some real momentum towards some local rules. In talking with County Counsel's office, they're looking at making some recommendations, and that's my staff would be available to make comment and have suggestions for local rules. I think in the long run, we'll see, actually, right as soon as they're adopted, we'll begin to see efficiencies in administration. There'll be some clarity added on issues that otherwise might end up being arguments that really didn't have to happen. There are the professional participants, especially, who organize their workloads in multiple counties, will be able to go over the local rules. They'll know the arrangements. They'll know the expectations in a more efficient way. And so I think your workload and our workload will all benefit from advancing some local rules. And oftentimes in these areas, there's some, there may be a body of work that has on the fringe, like the bell curve, has some harder items to reconcile which way to go. But the main, the central area, there's probably a lot of agreement and easy decisions to be made. And so even if it was looked at as maybe a two-stage thing, that the first stage would certainly be to adopt a quantity of very easy, logical, and understandable rules. And if some seem to be going along too hard, taking too long to reconcile, well, let those set on the back burner for maybe the next phase of review. And they could have a little more scrutiny, but it would probably be, I'd recommend adopting the bigger body of good rules sooner rather than holding up the whole decision because of a few of the extremities.
Makes sense.
Let's see. One thing. I'm going to have a little bit of a disagreement on one item I'm going to bring up. So I thought before that, any questions so far?
Can't wait for it.
So.
Not right now.
So this isn't. It's not really a disagreement because there really hasn't been a position taken. So I'm kind of glad for the opportunity to express a little point of view. Mine's just one person's point of view, but on the issue of filing fees, I know some counties have them. The assessors, we meet on a fairly regular basis, a few times a year. I'll be meeting with my colleagues in August this year. And so filing fees have been talked about a lot. Some counties use them, some like them. The biggest personal reason I have for objecting to it is the people that are paying thousands of dollars a year in property taxes, should be, of course, the idea that they should say, well, I think you made a mistake. My value's wrong. And if it comes to the formal appeal time period, to charge them to do that seems awkward to me. It seems very difficult. In fact, just by the good nature that we don't arrest very many people in our county, and there's a lot of other services that property taxes pay for, but most of our applicants don't need much in the way of county services. I mean, they like the umbrella, of course, of fire protection, police protection, all the systems that are part of the umbrella of good government services. But in terms of drawing down on a regular basis, they're not drawing too much. And many of them are writing checks of $3,000 a year, $5,000, $10,000, and more to the county of Ventura. So it just seems kind of unfair to me to say, well, now that you want to question what the assessor put on the roll, we're going to charge you some more. So that's my point of view on that one.
Thank you.
I understand the administrative thing, but I guess I think that the county gets in general purpose revenues. I kind of lost the number. What's in my head though is something around $300 million, but maybe $350 million and by general purpose out of the well over $1 billion that are collected in property taxes. So maybe it's not quite that much. Anyway, but the county share is somewhere in the $300 million area, and it would seem like if they're out of strategizing and thinking about budgets, I realize there's a lot of folks that compete, and a lot of departments and agencies that compete for it. But you would think that the property tax related issues, including county council, clerk of the board's budget, they ought to be certainly have some level of priority when it comes to the more than $1 billion that are paid by the taxpayers each year.
Wow.
So, all right. Again, thank you very much for the work that you all have done and how you apply yourselves in a professional and collegial way, and I appreciate your courtesy and the patience I've heard with certainly with the various presenters you have, whether they be taxpayers who are very uninformed but have personal need to express themselves, and my staff as well. I think we have a very successful situation, and I'm really pleased to be a part of it as your assessor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Before you
Thank
depart, we'll ask if there are any questions or comments.
Mr. Goodwin, are you in a contest? We noticed the little facial.
I didn't
I'm
recognize
kind of on summer vacation in a way, but I guess the contest to be, of course, Mr. Crow, to be full disclosure, the biggest challenge I'm having with this whiskers is my wife. She's not favorable to it, and she's looking forward to me shaving soon. But I've kind of enjoyed letting my razor rest. It's mostly just been letting my razor rest a while. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Crow. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Goodwin, thank you very much, and to leadership and everyone involved in the hearings. I know I can speak on behalf of all of us. We really appreciate the extremely hard work and high level of organization that's put forth. And also, it's amazing to me personally the volume of appeals and how somehow they're all handled. And we definitely recognize the fact that there's so much work to be done and that it all gets addressed and professionally,
Sure,
and there's a lot of hard work that goes in, I understand.
Yeah. Thank you,
So,
sir.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And any other comments, questions? So thank you all
Thank you.
for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next we'll go to public comments. Okay. Like you said, Mr. Goodwin, no, the lack of public comments might be a good sign,
Good thing.
right? And any board comments?
I do notice one thing. I wonder, is Mr. Raduso going to be our representative from the clerk of the board's office?
Our regular council, Ms. Porsche, is just not present today. She had to be out, so
Okay,
she will
all right.
continue. As far as my understanding, she'll continue to be our counsel.
All right, thank you.
We still want you, though, Joe.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Crow. Any other board comments? Okay, before we close, I do want to thank the County Council's office for the hard work and representation. Mr. Randazzo, we're so glad you're here. And if you would please extend our thanks and appreciation to Ms. Porsche. She has been very dedicated, detail-oriented, and very helpful at each and every one of our hearings, and we truly appreciate that. Okay, unless there are any other board comments, gone, we will be adjourned at 10:15. Thank you.